Is the sound of a flat, muddy, and lifeless mix a little too familiar? You've poured countless hours into getting your track to sound aggressive and powerful, but the final result just keeps falling flat. It's a wall of mush where nothing has its own space, missing all the punch, the clarity, and the energy you hear in your head. If this is you, stick around. I'm going to share the key tips to add depth and warmth to your metal mixes so you can make them sound huge and powerful again. We're going to break down the 4 biggest technical issues that are holding you back and give you the exact, actionable steps to fix them for good. Let's be real. The main reason your mixes aren't hitting hard enough is that you're fighting a battle on too many fronts without a clear plan. You're trying to fix muddy frequencies, lifeless dynamics, and a 2-dimensional soundstage all at the same time. And the result is a track that just sounds weak, no matter how much you turn it up. But the fix is simpler than you think. It's all about making a few smart, surgical decisions instead of just throwing more plugins at the problem and hoping for the best. Today, we're going to run through it like a checklist. I'll walk you through the 4 biggest culprits behind flat-sounding mixes. For each one, I'll quickly explain why it's happening, and then I'll show you exactly how to fix it. We'll cover muddy EQ, the pancake effect from bad compression, a lack of depth, and finally, one critical element that most home producers completely ignore. By the end of this, you'll have a clear roadmap to take your mixes from flat to ferocious. The number 1 enemy of a powerful metal mix is mud. It's that congested, blurry sound that buries your riffs and makes the whole track feel weak. This problem almost always starts with your EQ, specifically with something called frequency masking. That's just a fancy way of saying too many instruments are fighting for the same sonic space, creating a cluttered mess. In metal, the main war zone is always the low end and the low mids. This happens when your chugging low end of guitars crashes into the bass guitar and the punch of the kick drum. The other major problem spot is what I like to call the mud zone, usually between 200 and 500 hertz. This is where the body of the guitars, the warmth of the bass, and even the shell of the snare drum all live. If you don't manage it carefully, that range turns into pure sonic mud. So how do we clean it up? First things first, you have to be ruthless with high-pass filters. A high-pass filter, or a low cut, does exactly what its name implies. It lets the high frequencies pass and cuts the lows. Your distorted guitars, especially if they're low-tuned, are generating a ton of sub-bass rumble that you just don't need. It adds 0 to your tone and only clutters the mix, fighting your kick and bass for space. So on every single rhythm guitar track, drop an EQ on it and turn on a high-pass filter. Start around 70 or 80 hertz and slowly sweep it up while listening to the whole mix. You'll find a sweet spot usually between 90 and 110 hertz, where you cut out the mud without making the guitar sound thin. Just doing that one thing will instantly carve out a pocket for your kick and bass to punch through, which is the foundation of a heavy mix. Now that that low end is clean, it's time to deal with the mud zone from 200 to 500 hertz. The key here is surgical. A common mistake is just taking a wide EQ band and scooping the whole area out. That will leave your guitar sounding hollowed out and empty. Instead, we want to find the specific, nasty frequencies and get rid of them. To do this, take a narrow EQ band, boost it by a lot, like 10 dB or more, and slowly sweep across that 200 to 500 range. You'll hear certain frequencies jump out that sound particularly ugly, kind of boxy or honky. When you find one, that's your target. Now, instead of boosting, make a narrow cut right on that frequency. You don't need to be aggressive. A cut of just 2 to 4 dB is often enough to clean things up without gutting your tone. This surgical approach takes out the problem without sacrificing the essential weight of the guitars. With the mud gone, we can add some aggression and clarity. A lot of people make the mistake of boosting the super high fizz frequencies way up past 10K, thinking it adds clarity. Honestly, most of the time, it just adds painful harshness and makes your cymbals sound like trash can lids. Before you boost anything though, you should also listen for annoying whistle frequencies that can pop out in a guitar tone, usually somewhere in the 2K to 6K range. Similar to how we treated the mud, you can make tight, surgical cuts to get rid of these harsh frequencies. Cleaning that up first is key. The real clarity and pick attack for metal guitars lives in the upper mid-range, between 2K and 5K. A gentle boost here could bring out the definition in your riffs and help the guitar slice through the mix. And here's a pro tip. Try using a dynamic EQ. A dynamic EQ only boosts when the signal gets loud enough, so you can set it to boost those upper mids only during heavy palm mutes, keeping the more natural tone when the chords are ringing out. Alright, mistake number 2, improper compression. There's a huge myth that to make metal sound powerful, you have to compress everything into oblivion. In reality, overcompressing is the fastest way to kill your mix's dynamics and makes it sound lifeless. It's called the pancake effect. Power isn't just about loudness. It's about the contrast between loud and quiet. It's the crack of the snare after a moment of silence. It's the punch of a palm muted chug, When you overcompress, you shrink the distance between the loudest and quietest parts, flattening the performance and sucking all the energy out of it. Instead of just slapping a compressor on every track and cranking the ratio, think about what you're trying to achieve. With dynamic stuff like drums, the goal is usually just to control the loudest hits, the transients, so they don't leap out of the mix. We want to shape the sound, not squash it. A great way to do this is with a fast attack and a medium to fast release on your compressor. The fast attack will catch the initial peak of the drum hit and tame it, while the release should be timed to let go just before the next hit comes. This keeps the punch and impact while making the overall level more consistent. You don't need a crazy ratio here. 3-to-1, 4-to-1 is often plenty. We're going for gentle control, not total destruction. Now, this technique is a total game changer for adding punch to your drums without killing their dynamics. Here's how it works. Instead of putting a compressor directly on your drums, create a separate aux track. Send a copy of your drum mix to this new track. Now, on this parallel track, you want to get aggressive. Use a compressor with a fast attack, fast release, and a super high ratio, like 10-to-1 or even higher. We're talking about absolutely crushing the signal. Now for the magic. Take the fader for this crush track and slowly blend it in underneath your main uncompressed drums. You get the best of both worlds, all the power and density from the compressed signal, but you keep the sharp, clear transients from the original. This is how you get drums that sound massive, but still feel alive. A flat mix isn't just about dynamics, it's also about a lack of depth. A pro mix feels three-dimensional. There's width from left to right, height from top to bottom in the frequencies, and depth from front to back. Amateur mixes often feel like everything is glued right to the speakers, creating a flat wall of sound. We need to create a sense of space and put our instruments in different places on that virtual stage. Panning is your main tool for creating width, but please don't just pan two rhythm guitars hard left and right and call it a day. Think about the whole picture. Your kick, snare, and lead vocal should usually stay near the center to anchor the mix, but everything else is fair game. Pan your hi-hats a little to one side and the ride cymbal to the other. If you have layers of guitars or synths, spread them out to create a wider, more immersive sound. A wider mix is a clearer mix because you're giving each instrument its own spot. Now this is where people get scared, especially in metal. There's a fear that using reverb or delay will make the mix sound washed out and rob it of its aggression. The key is to be subtle and have a purpose. You're not trying to make it sound like your band is in a cathedral. You're just using these effects to create a subtle sense of space that pushes some things further back in the mix. Here's a great technique. Use a short room or plate reverb on a separate bus. Send just a little bit of your snare to this reverb. Now use the reverb's pre-delay setting. This creates a tiny gap of silence before the reverb actually starts, which lets the initial crack of the snare cut through cleanly before the reverb tail blooms behind it. You should feel the space more than you actually hear the reverb. You can do the same thing with a subtle, short slapback delay on a lead guitar. This can push it behind the vocals, giving the mix a clear front-to-back dimension. The goal isn't to hear the effect, it's to feel that some instruments are further away than others. Here's one thing that no plugin, no EQ, and no compressor can ever fix. If your musical arrangement is too dense, your mix will always sound flat and muddy. This is a huge concept that separates amateurs from pros. Mixing isn't about forcing puzzle pieces to fit. It's about showcasing an already great arrangement. If your two guitars are playing the exact same riff in the same octave, and the bass player is just chugging along on the same root notes, you've created a sonic traffic jam. All those instruments are fighting for the exact same frequencies in the exact same rhythmic pocket. A great mix starts with a great arrangement. Before you even touch an EQ, listen to the parts themselves. Can the bass play a slightly different rhythm that locks in with the kick drum instead of the guitars? Can one guitar hold a power chord while the other plays a more intricate riff? Can you create huge moments of impact by having some instruments drop out entirely, just to make it feel massive when they all come back in? These are arrangement choices, not mixing choices. You have to create space musically before you can ever enhance it with mixing tools. Thinking like a producer and an arranger is the ultimate key to getting powerful, deep, and clear mixes. We've covered a lot of ground, and I know this can be a ton to take in at once. The best way to get this stuff down is to actually put it into practice. So, to recap the 4 keys to fixing your flat metal mixes. First, get ruthless with your EQ. High pass everything to clear out the rumble, and use surgical cuts to get rid of the mud. Second, use compression to shape your sound and add punch, not flatten it. Use parallel compression on your drums for power. Third, create a 3D soundstage with smart panning for width and subtle reverb and delay for depth. And finally, but most importantly, remember that a killer mix starts with a killer arrangement. Create space in the music itself. Stop fighting your mix and start making these intentional moves. I promise you will hear a massive difference. Now I have a question for you. Let me know down in the comments, what is the single biggest struggle you're having with your metal mixes? Is it muddy guitars, weak drums, or something else entirely? I read all the comments and I'd love to help you out. Thanks for watching. And if you found this helpful, subscribe for more videos to help you get pro sounding tracks from your home studio. And I'll see you on the next one.